Good evening and thank you for joining us. As the Russian invasion of Ukraine continues to intensify, local Ukrainians are planning a rally at City Hall tomorrow.
Organizer Walter Warywoda has family members in Ukraine who are trying to escape to safety, and a local MP who's witnessed other war zones is also offering his perspective. Alex Flood has the details.
Walter Warywoda is the president of the League of Ukrainian Canadians for the Thunder Bay branch, and his wife has several relatives currently trying to escape Ukraine. Like many thousands, their family has been in a line for the past 24 hours, waiting to cross the Ukrainian border into Poland. Warywoda says he's incredibly worried for their loved ones as they attempt to flee the country.
It's a very troublesome circumstance. Many people are running for the western borders to Poland and things like that. Lineups at the border, I understand. Obviously, trying to avoid bombings by hiding in either shelters or in metro stations underground. A very desperate and dire situation that was totally uncalled for.
Meanwhile, local MP Marcus Powlowski offered his own personal thoughts on the recent attacks, saying he's horrified with what's transpired over the last few days. Having spent several years as a doctor on the edge of war zones, Powlowski says he's seen with his own eyes what transpires in war, and notes the loss of life is something that can't be overlooked.
Stalin once said, a million deaths is a statistic, one death is a tragedy. And I think when we look what's happening in Ukraine, you have to remember that each death is a person. Each death, there's a parent losing a child losing a parent, someone losing their brother or sister. So,
the League of Ukrainian Canadians is inviting the public to attend a rally in support of Ukraine on Saturday, which will be held at City Hall starting at 1 o'clock. Attendees are invited and encouraged to bring a flag and wear their blue and yellow in support of those who are struggling in Ukraine. Alex Flood, TBT News.
Ontario is asking the provincial liquor stores to pull Russian products like vodka from its shelves. Ontario Finance Minister says the province made the move to condemn Putin's aggression against Ukraine. The Manitoba Liquor Mart announced on Twitter that it will also remove Russian products as well as Newfoundland and Labrador.
Provincial Cabinet Minister Greg Rickford is denying accusations made by the opposition yesterday. Ontario NDP leader Andrea Horwath claimed the Ford government secretly reduced the Canadian content requirement for mass transit contracts, a further blow to the struggling Alstom plant here in Thunder Bay. Vasilios Bellos has more on the reaction.
Why on earth would this premier do that without telling anyone, without consulting anyone?
Possible implications for the Alstom plant after the NDP accused the Conservative government of dropping the Canadian content minimum for Ontario subway line cars from 25% to 10%. If true, this could see the vast majority of Ontario rail car manufacturing being done outside of Canada, and less work at the Alstom plant, which has already seen devastating layoffs. When questioned about the subway RFP, which shows the 10% CanCon requirement, Minister Greg Rickford would only stress that the Conservatives are actually pushing for a much higher percentage, and says the Conservative government has always supported the Alstom plant.
Let's be clear. Our commitment is over 75% of the Ontario line project will consist of Canadian content. We've made significant investments in the Alstom plant. We care deeply for those workers. I know there's some tough times right now, but over the past couple of years, we've worked closely with Alstom and their workers.
With any manufacturing project, there is always the need to source outside of Ontario or even Canada. Many factors need to be considered, including whether specific parts can be manufactured within the country. Rickford provided more details of how this will affect the Ontario Line project, but says it does not change his government's 75% Canadian content goal.
There are technical elements of the project in its totality that require an exemption here or there, but we think these are for very small parts of the overall project. And our level of confidence that we can meet that Canadian content threshold applies to the entire project.
If the Conservatives can maintain their 75% Canadian content goal for the Ontario Line project, Rickford says it could lead to important growth that could recover jobs at the local Alstom plant. Vasilios Bellos, TBT News.
Meanwhile, the Labour Action Centre that was created during the major layoffs at the plant back in 2019, when it was still known as Bombardier, will close its doors on March 22nd. The news comes just days after the announcement that hundreds of workers will be laid off by Alstom next month. The Labour Action Centre was first opened on Gore Street in order to help 550 layoff workers create resumes, develop new skills, and find other careers. Now, despite more than 300 new layoffs due to a gap in the contracts at the Alstom plant, the Action Centre hasn't been able to get a funding extension approved by the ministry. Adjustment Committee Chair Ian Angus is calling on the Ford government to step in and keep the centre open into October for the newly laid off employees.
That the government will see fit to find the dollars, and it won't be very much. I think we had budgeted about another $160,000 to take us through till October. So they can find that in their pocket change in their limos.
Angus adds these latest layoff workers deserve to have the same service as their former co-workers who were laid off in years past.
It's official, the Thunder Bay Police Service is the last remaining municipal police force in northwestern Ontario. Yesterday, members of the Dryden Police Service signed off for the final time as the Ontario Provincial Police officially took over responsibilities there. It was a day of emotion, reflection, and tributes. Adam Riley has the story.
The Dryden Police Service has proudly served the community since 1910, and we would like to thank the citizens for their support. For the final time, this is the Dryden Police Service signing off.
And with that, shortly after 6 o'clock Thursday morning, 112 years of municipal policing came to an end as the Dryden Police Service finished its watch over the residents of Dryden, and the Ontario Provincial Police took its first. The atmosphere was somber as memories were shared and captured by some of the officers who either just completed their last shift or came in to say goodbye and help decommission both the equipment and the headquarters. DPS Chief Ed Schwastik says while the service may be ending, that equipment will go on to assist partners within the region. The decision to have the Ontario Provincial Police take over due to increasing costs and crime rates was a contentious one, with some members of council fighting to the bitter end to save the local service. Deputy Mayor Michelle Price says the decision was not made lightly.
I was actually reading over what I had said when the decision was made, and I was in tears when I made that decision. But I know it's the best decision for our community. There was no other decision to be made.
Later that morning, a ceremonial coin exchange was made between OPP Chief Superintendent Bryan McKillop and Schwastik. Several of DPS's officers will be joining the OPP in Dryden following some training in Orillia, while others are retiring or shifting to Treaty 3, Lac Seul, or Nishnawbe Police Services. McKillop says for all involved, Thursday was a big change.
What we have to acknowledge is a departure from a storied history, from an agency comprised of people and generations of officers that have really poured their heart and soul into this community, and that's not lost on us as part of the OPP.
Just prior to a special ceremony for officers and their families, sirens and cheers erupted as fellow first responders from the area drove past to salute the contributions of the DPS, and students from Open Roads Elementary School held up signs in support and formed a sort of honor guard for the officers and staff on their last march as a team. Schwastik says while he had only joined the DPS 3 months prior to disbandment, he still empathized with the officers that day and in that moment.
I can see through their eyes just the impact it has on their lives, on their professional lives, and also their personal lives. And it was definitely an emotional moment, and it was well done.
10-4, the Dryden Police Service is now 10-7.
Adam Riley, TBT News.
A former leader in a local youth organization has been found guilty of sexual assault and sexual interference. Today's trial of the then 19-year-old recounted 2 incidents from the summer of 2019 involving the accused and 2 minors, who were at the time members of the youth organization. A publication ban is in place to protect the identity of the accused and all involved parties. The accused was initially charged by police in November of 2020. The judge found that the evidence provided by the complainant was enough to prove the accused guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Sentencing will take place on April 11th.
A 33-year-old Thunder Bay man has been charged with sexual assault following an incident that occurred yesterday afternoon. A female victim used a local ride service to get her home. Instead, she was driven to a secluded area where the alleged assault took place. The accused driver then took her home. With the cooperation of the ride service company, he was identified and charged. He'll appear in court on April 29th.
The price of gasoline shot up today at several Thunder Bay stations. And if the other gas bars follow suit, it'll mark another new record high at the local pumps. The cost of a liter of regular gas went up 11 cents at these stations along Memorial Avenue, from $1.58 up to $1.69.9. Local drivers were probably lucky it didn't go up sooner, as the average price in Ontario has been rising for weeks and now sits at $1.56 a litre. Across Canada, gas prices are up 11 cents from 1 month ago and up 35 cents from a year ago.
There are 2 new COVID-19 related deaths being reported today across northwestern Ontario. One comes from the Thunder Bay District Health Unit, where 79 people have now died from the virus since the pandemic began. The other comes from the Northwestern Health Unit, where 20 people have now died. Meanwhile, the number of cases at the Regional Health Sciences Centre has risen since yesterday as well. As of this afternoon, there are 49 people hospitalized with COVID-19 at the regional hospital, up from 40 yesterday. And the number of ICU patients has gone up from 8 to 9. The hospital is currently about 105% full, while the occupancy rate in the intensive care has fallen below 82%. The Thunder Bay District Health Unit is reporting 150 new cases since Wednesday. There are now 304 active cases, down slightly from 307 2 days ago. The new reported death is the 5th this month. In the Northwestern Health Unit, the number of active cases has shot up to 409, 101 more than there were on Wednesday, and the test positivity rate continues to soar as well. It now sits at more than 32%. The new death in that part of the region is the 3rd in the NWHU this week. Some major headaches for local hip-hop fans looking to grab tickets to the upcoming concert by Polo G at the Fort William Gardens. Online sales were supposed to open up at 10 o'clock this morning, but the city's ticketing website crashed for several hours. It wasn't until about 1 o'clock this afternoon that fans were able to purchase tickets smoothly for the rapper's May 19th show. Before the problem was fixed, those clicking the link were met with an error page. A city official says the problem was a result of the system being overloaded by ticket buyers. The Polo G concert is already about 90% sold out. It's the first major show at the Gardens since 2014.
And 2 local best friends are the latest big winners of the Thunder Bay 50-50 jackpot in support of the Regional Health Science Foundation. Don Zinmack and David Traynor bought the winning ticket, and Glenn Craig made the call to a very excited Zinmack this afternoon.
Holy moly. This is not a joke, right?
This is not a joke. I wouldn't do that to you, not on a cold day. I don't have a cold heart.
Oh my goodness, Dave is going to be ecstatic. He's one of my best friends, and he decided to buy a ticket with me. So, wow. My wife is officially retiring today. It's her last day at work. I just retired in January. So guess what? We got things to do now.
Talk about a perfect gift to start your retirement. Zinmack and Traynor will each get half of the $657,000 jackpot. Zinmack says he always watches them when they announce the 50-50 winners on the news and often wondered what it would feel like. Well, Don, you don't have to wonder anymore. Tickets are already on sale for March's jackpot. The draw will be held on March 25th.